MMA's national amateur platform has arrived. It is the Elite Amateur Fight League, and this is the Fighter First Podcast. What's up, fight fans? Hope you're enjoying your summer. It's been a tough one for sure this year, but all of us in the fight game, one thing about us that we know is we will prosper, we will survive, we will come out better on the other side, no matter what they throw at us. We appreciate you following the nation's #1 team versus team, state versus state fight league, the Elite Amateur Fight League. Jim Grieshaber, voice of the EAFL from day one, and I'm joined now by a guy who really needs no introduction. He's the host of Santino's World podcast, which you can find on iTunes and many other outlets. Great show, really smart guy, a lot of incredible topics to talk about rather than just MMA. He's the coach of UFC champions, including Henry Cejudo, one of the greatest combat sports athletes of all times. He himself is a former UFC fighter, and he, for our purposes, most importantly, the head coach of the Arizona Apollos, the defending EAFL champs. He is Santino Defranco. What's up, Santino? Good to see you again. And man, I'll tell you what, it's that's a long intro, and I could have put a whole bunch of other stuff in there too.
Yeah, it seemed long. I think you should just cut that to Santino Defranco, and would you just run wherever we're at after that?
Humility will get you everywhere, man. And I think the last time we hung out was in Fight Ready, MMA and Fitness here in Arizona, right before Henry Cejudo went and won another fight and defended his belt again against Dominic Cruz. I saw you in there, and we were talking, and we were still in the shutdown, the first shutdown, and the gym was opened up for Henry's camp, and then he went and fought. Since then, the gym's been open, and now it's closed again. So the first question I have to ask you, and we're going to get to, of course, what you've done with the Apollos and everything else that's going on there, but how tough has this been as a coach, and how hard is it mentally on the fighters, the fight teams, and fighters, even the ones who don't have fights, to have all this happening where the gyms are closing and they're opening and they're closing? And it's been a tough time with COVID-19.
Man, you know, it definitely has been. Definitely, this has been just a stressful time for everybody during all this, because nobody really knows how to react. Like, how do you? That's the thing, is when you've never been exposed to a situation before, how do you react in that situation? We don't know what's right. We don't know what's wrong. Just like the government is telling us, wear masks, don't wear masks. Healthcare workers should wear masks, but nobody else should. Okay, nope, everybody should. So nobody really knows, and so it's the same way with the gym as well. We just don't know what we're doing yet. So, the first shutdown, in Arizona, at least, that is, some other states are open. Arizona was back open, and for those that don't know, we just shut down again. What was it? Monday or Tuesday?
30 days minimum. Yeah.
Yeah. For another 30 days. So we were shut down. I believe it was 6 weeks before, 7 weeks, whatever it was. And then, we're open for about 7 weeks, and now we're shut down again. During the first shutdown, I think it was actually better for the fighters, because we were only running individual camps. We weren't running, I would run a team practice, just closed doors, team type practice stuff, a couple days a week, letting the guys come in, doing stuff. But mainly it was just if you had a fight, that was it. You had 2 or 3 training partners dedicated to you. You're coming in, and all eyes are on you for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. And then the next group would come in. We had multiple fights. We had Courtney Casey, Henry Cejudo, Hunter Azur, all had fights, within 3 or 4 days. So we had to be running camps, just again and again. It's actually, as a coach, I've never been busier in my life. Like, just as a human, I've never been busier than I have been during this COVID time.
Yeah.
I had no time off, and I was just running it. I would say the real issue is regular people at the gym, just people wanting to show up and train.
Yeah.
Like, that's not allowed, but the fighters, hey, there's no way around it. You can tell us we can't train, things have to shut down. Well, the UFC isn't shut down. The UFC is booking fights. So we have to train for those fights. And, case closed, end of story.
I just want to interject here too, Santino. And I say this all the time, and I've been around the sport for probably 12 years now. It's a lifelong thing for you. There's no place safer than an MMA gym when it comes to disease. Because of staff, because of MRSA, because of things like that we have to worry about, and you especially have to worry about all the time at the gyms. It's one of the cleanest places in the world, an MMA gym, and it has to be 24/7, 365, COVID, no COVID.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's relevant here, just because I don't know enough about COVID. I don't know. A flu, when somebody comes in and they get sick, everyone on the team gets sick. Somebody gets a cold, everybody gets a cold. Somebody gets staph, everybody gets staph. Those things are going to be transferred, just like anything is going to be transferred. But my take on it anyway, and I'm no, immunologist, epidemiologist. I don't, I'm not a scientist, of course, is that we have so many people testing positive who are asymptomatic. And because of that, because we have COVID, doing stuff, but we've never tested people with colds, people with the flu who aren't showing symptoms. So I wonder if we were to test a bunch of people for the flu right now, for the cold right now, for MRSA all over our body, staff, we're going to test positive for it. We're, probably you and me probably have the flu right now and don't even know it because we don't have symptoms. We both have COVID right now, but we don't even know. We don't have symptoms. And so I don't know that it's really that big of an issue outside of as long as you don't have a comorbidity. Do you have diabetes? Do you have, are you obese? Do you have underlying health conditions? And I think those people should probably be home, but, the healthy people, I'm not sure that we shouldn't. I don't know if that's right or wrong. That's just my own take on it. But as a coach, I'm not worried about I personally am not worried about COVID at all. If I was sick, if I had, somebody living in my household who was very sick, then I would worry about it, but I don't. I have small kids. My wife and I are healthy. I understand everyone's not healthy, so I get that, but me, myself, I'm not worried about it at all.
What about the social responsibility element of it? So that's where it gets me, because I'm not worried about it either. I'm 48 and I read about, hey, there's a 30-year-old who never had any health problems who just died from it, and here's a 45-year-old and this and that. But I feel like I don't invite these things into my life. I'm a big law of attraction guy. I keep telling my son, stop talking about it. I don't think about getting sick. I don't get sick. I don't think about car accidents. I don't get in a car accident. I believe in that. And I believe that has a big role in keeping these things out of my life. But I also believe in social
Well, hold on. I got to stop you right there.
So,
let me interject right there, because
sure.
One thing that you said, if you don't think about getting sick, then you're not going to get sick. Well, if you think about getting sick, then you create a stress hormone, cortisol, which when your cortisol levels are higher and your stress is higher, then your immune system is weaker. And so, of course, that's a physiological effect. It's psychosomatic. If you think about things, if you worry about things, then there are stresses, then there's cortisol levels, then you don't sleep. When you don't sleep, your immune system is weakened. When your cortisol levels are high, your immune system is weakened. So these things, it makes sense. It makes sense what you're saying. So just in general, having less stress, not thinking about this stuff as much, not worrying about. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get COVID. It doesn't mean you're not going to get sick. It doesn't mean any of that, but it's definitely not going to hurt. Having lower stress levels is better for your, physiological health as a whole, with blood pressure, pulse, cortisol levels, all of these things, and that's just going to help. I'm not saying you can't think away a cold, you can't think away COVID, you can't wish it away. But not thinking about it isn't going to help. Stressing about it.
Not at all. And this is the kind of stuff, by the way, that I was talking about in the intro that you get on Santino's World. One of the smartest guys I've known is Santino Defranco here on the EAFL, and defending champion Arizona Apollo's head coach here with me, Jim Grieshauber. And, Santino, I talked about the social responsibility element of it. I wear a mask, obviously, because we're told to, but I wear one, and I have an N95. I've flown. I've been to Vegas. I've covered the UFC. I'm not afraid of it. I go to restaurants. I'm certainly not afraid of it at all. And I'm not going to be afraid of anything in my lifetime, because I don't believe in living in fear, and I think that's worse than anything else. And there's also a mental health side of it, which we'll get to in a minute. But on the social responsibility side, there are a lot of at-risk people. And I hear a lot of people saying, well, that's their fault, so it's every man for themselves, or every woman, it's Darwinism, that kind of thing. And while I understand that line of thought, I also believe, because I have a father right now who's quarantined 3,000 miles away, and if I get off a plane in Connecticut, I have to wait 2 weeks and quarantine myself just before, and I still can't go see him because he can't go anywhere. No one can go in and see him. He's completely at risk. We have parents, we have grandparents, we have people in our family, health reasons or not, who are at risk, and people in the world. So for me, if I had symptoms and I weren't showing them, and a lot of people aren't, so, and then you have a mask on and the numbers that tell you you can spread it if you're positive, I don't want to be the one who's giving it to other people, at risk or not, causing them to get it and possibly pass away, or I give it to someone who gives it to someone who gives it to someone. I do believe in the social responsibility element more than I do the notion that I should be living in fear of contracting it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. It does. But I don't think, with the social responsibility element, it's everybody's responsibility. It's not me against it. But see, that's the thing, is it doesn't need to be polarized. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be both. It doesn't have to be, no, I refuse to wear a mask. I'm not going to do that. These are my rights. Or, you have to lock down, everyone has to wear a mask, all of these things. I think there's a middle ground. And I think with testing improving and going up, I think that people are just way more aware of whether they have it or not, and then they need to quarantine. But I think with the other side of that is, I think we should all be wearing masks. I think if you are sick, you shouldn't be going out. We need to be washing our hands. We need to be, doing what everyone can on an individual basis to limit other people's exposure to the virus. I mean, that's just, we all should. That said, we shouldn't have to shut down, and we shouldn't have to, do absolutely nothing, because it comes from both sides. The people who have a comorbidity, the people who have underlying conditions, who are a health risk, those are people that should stay home, that should be quarantined, that really need to be very careful with how they live their lives. And the rest of us need to make sure that we're wearing masks and not, endangering those people. But we also, if we also have to live, the economy has to go on. We don't have a choice, whether the fights are happening or not. These are things that we have to do. So there's a balance between the economy and keeping people alive. There's a balance between me being safe, not worrying about getting sick, and not getting other people sick. So it's not one or the other. It's a combination of both and all.
Yeah, and I would say in the all, right there within all that is mental health, because from being in the gym, and it's not just about the fighters. Most MMA gyms, and you're a part of two of them at Fight Ready and Siege, and it's one of those things where mental health is a huge factor right now. People being locked in the house. We've seen it with the protests, where people have been in the house for that long, and it makes the protests that much more angry, and people have been cooped up and locked up. And there are a lot of people out there calling. Those suicide hotline numbers are way up. The mental health, the counseling numbers are way up. I deal with it every day with my kids. They're cooped in the house, and they're not meant to be. So there's so much there without being able to work out with. Now, the governor of Arizona closes the bars and puts the gyms in there. So you can go into a Taco Bell and you can go into a Walmart, but you can't go and work out at a gym. So the mental health element is so important, and so many people out there who train, and not just MMA, people who, go out and take walks every day, people who go and work out at a gym every day. You've got to get your body moving. We can't be locked in a house forever because of this COVID-19, when less than 1% of the population has it. So there's so many factors. I'm glad I'm not a governor. I'm glad I'm not an elected official on so many levels. I never would have been. But these issues are so new and so unique. We don't know enough about it. But there are so many different elements to think about here. And you as an MMA coach, and us as a league, I mean, the AFL is going to do, the first round especially is going to be awesome next year, where all the teams come to one place, and there's going to have to be testing in place now. The UFC has given us a fantastic model, all of us in the sports world, to run it by. They've done it with incredible success, but all of us are kind of on the back burner, and we're all waiting. We don't have the deep pockets that Zuffa has to do all that testing, to do all the stuff with the events, the fanless events. So all of us are in a holding pattern. And I believe, in a roundabout way, I'm getting to the point here, that being in that holding pattern can be very counterproductive and very unhealthy for so many people in society, because being kind of stuck in limbo is no way to live your life. And the uncertainty of it alone, the mental health issues can, live and go on for a long time after that.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think people have, especially now, the mental health issue in America, not just, in MMA world and stuff. I mean, we see it a lot with the MMA gyms. I see a lot of people saying like, hey, I need the MMA gym to stay mentally healthy. I mean, but really we've got to adapt and overcome. I mean, it's the creatures on the planet right now. It's all about adaptation, and, nobody wants to be in this, but you've got to, if you can't go to the gym, you can run. You can swim. Do you have a pool? All right, you can do push-ups. You can go straight prison workout. You can do things like that.
I like that, prison workout.
Yeah, I mean, there are options.
People liken it to a prison. That's a good word for this.
Yeah, I mean, it's you've got to adapt, or you're gonna go insane. You've got to adapt. Jobs are having to adapt. People are having to adapt. Gyms are going online, doing Zoom classes. Like it really comes down to, we don't know what to do here. And if you try and stay, first of all, if you feel sorry for yourself and do nothing, then it's going to take over. I mean, whether it's your job, whether it's your mental health, your physical, I'm losing the headphones over here, whether your physical self, mental health, whatever, But really the reality is you've got to do something. I mean, you got to have a hobby, paint, draw something, read something, anything, I mean, there's just options. You got to have options.
Hug people.
Yeah, exactly.
Hug your
Yeah.
kids, hug your family.
Yeah.
To me, a 20-second hug, man, I'm telling you right now, a 20-second hug goes miles.
Yeah, but don't hug too many people because we're in the time of COVID right now, and that's how this stuff is spreading. So maintain
The
your
kids,
6
I'm
feet
talking
away.
about your
Yeah.
kids, the wife,
No, of course.
more. So you and your wife, I know more people are getting divorces than ever before, but bringing your family closer. I see what you're doing. You're doing a lot of cool stuff with your wife, with your kids, and keeping going. But I have to ask you, man, with all the fighters you coach, and every single fighter is different, and you're different. We're all different. That's what makes the world go round. But what are some of the biggest ways you've seen this affecting fighters, and how do you keep, as a coach, how do you keep your fighters focused? Have you had to at all? Like how has this been affecting fighters and coaches in the game?
I mean, the key is communication. The key is just talking to people, reaching out to all the fighters, making sure I'm talking with them, texting them, seeing where they're at. Do they need anything? Are they okay? Are they healthy? How's everything going? And for the most part, everybody wants to be in the gym. They want to be working out. They want to be doing stuff. And it just comes down to communication with anything. It's just communicating with them, making sure that they aren't feeling left out, that they're not feeling lonely, that if they need to get a workout in, if they need to be doing stuff, meeting them at the park, meeting, people together. So, it really just comes down to communicating with people and helping them through problems as they arise and just giving them an outlet, giving them options.
Yeah, and the gym can be such a saving grace or a game changer, and people are doing outdoor workouts. And Santino, one thing's for sure, and this might be a dubious distinction given the circumstances, but the Arizona Apollos will end up being the longest reigning champions in EAFL history because it'll be a longer time in between events, right, with everything going on. So season 3 champions, it was a great run for Arizona and going to Illinois and winning it. You've been a part of the EAFL for multiple seasons now, and we know that Arizona is a great state for mixed martial arts for sure, but I have to wonder how this affects the team, because you have some fighters who may or may not be amateurs the longer this goes, just depending upon whether they can get fights. And, LFA is going again here soon. The UFC is going. But how does this affect Team Arizona in the long run?
I don't know. I mean, amateurs are amateurs. Some of them will have an amateur fight and then never fight again. Others are, going to go 500. Others are going to go pro. Others are going to get injured. Others have babies and have, job changes. You never know. Once they turn pro, you can generally, even then once they turn pro, who knows? But, definitely at the amateur level, there's a high turnover, especially with something like this. It's been, a year since we won the belt, right around. It was June of last year.
A little over a year. Yep.
Yeah. And so, you don't know. I know a couple of the amateurs that were on my team last year are going pro this year, trying to, depending if they can get fights as things come back. The amateurs have it a little bit harder during this COVID time because, you can't always justify having too many people around, during this time, especially if you're not getting paid for it.
And they have jobs and they're going other places where they might be exposed, whereas the pro fighters can stay home and just go to the gym, but the amateurs have to make money somewhere else, right?
Yep. So, we'll probably see a different batch of amateurs this year. And honestly, I don't even know who those will be at this point. I don't even know if we have a date, what's going on, or anything. So once we find out dates, times, places, then we can start to put together a team.
Yeah, no dates yet. It's looking like it might be Chicago. There are other options though too, and so much is up in the air with COVID, the timeline, locations, all these things. And Santino Defranco, Team Arizona. Looks like you lost your light there.
I lost my light. It died on me.
He's a silhouette.
Died on me. Here, hold on one second. Let me throw open my blinds. Okay.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah, it's a little better. You see my books.
I'm trying to think where we were. Where were we? We were talking about fighters. We were talking about, okay, I'm going to pick it up in 3, 2. So much is up in the air because of COVID. We don't know. It looks like it could be in Chicago, and that's the headquarters of the league. But we've looked at Vegas. We've looked at casinos around the country. We've looked at all types of different places because all the teams coming in one place. When you're thinking about COVID, which are the easiest places to quarantine? The fanless events, all these things that we've had to talk about now. because of this disease and what's going on and so much of it being up in the air. But I'll tell you one thing for sure. It's a lot of fun for the fighters when they do get to participate in something like this. And even though none of us saw this coming and we don't know how long it'll be before the new season, you'll be a defending champion. So the state will be the defending champ. It's kind of like a college basketball team where, all 6 of the top 8 players graduated and they're still the defending champs, even though it's all different players, right? So it'll probably be the same with the Arizona Apollos. But, I want to talk to you, Santino, about the experience, because you've been a fighter, you've been a coach, and amateur fighters usually do local shows, and the coaches don't get paid off the amateurs either. So it's hard sometimes to get the coaches to travel with the amateurs because they can stay and do a local show with a bunch of pros and make some money there. And that's an issue. But as a coach, and thinking about it from the standpoint of what's best for the fighters at a young age, or even a little bit older in some of their cases, but it's certainly in relative to experience of their career, being an amateur fighter, being early on in your career, the experience of being able to travel, of being in a hotel, of being, getting meals on the road, getting the media training and the interviews and all these things as an amateur to help build a brand and help educate those fighters, and then to compete against the best of the best, team versus team, state versus state. I love it as a guy who loves the sport, and I'm always sport first, everything else second. And I love to see the looks on the faces of these fighters and watch them experience what usually only the pros have gotten to experience. To me, that's my favorite part about the league. Can you just talk about that experience from your perspective as a head coach?
Yeah, as a coach, you want to make sure that the lights and the interviews and all of this stuff doesn't affect your fighters too much, and it's just like traveling for wrestling, traveling during any competition. You stay local, only go to your local tournaments, only go to your local, matches. Then you go to, a D1 college and you're running all over the place. You freak out, so just having travel teams, but just having the fighters travel, having to make weight, doing things a little bit differently, having the interviews, it just helps them prepare for what, really any pro fight is going to be. There's going to be interviews, there's going to be photo shoots, there's going to be traveling, there's going to be, weight cuts and different things.
Broken saunas in gyms,
yeah,
on the road,
exactly.
and having to find one last minute, like last year in Chicago.
Yeah, last year, honestly, it was a train wreck trying to make weight, during that event.
And everyone did it, though.
Yeah, everybody did it. Stuff happens. Life goes on, and you just, again, it comes down to adaptation. You got to be able to adapt.
Talk about being a pro as an amateur.
Yeah.
All of them made weight in adverse situation. There's nothing more pro than that.
Yeah, and so those experiences add up little by little, and then when you go pro, there's a little bit less of a shock.
Yeah, no question. And just kind of, also competing against the best of the best. To me, that's what makes this whole league. When you see the best from Illinois against the best from Arizona, against the best from New Mexico, against the best from Northern and Southern California. To me, when you're fighting in your own backyard, and we've seen this in Arizona, and both of us have been on the local scene for a long time, you get recycling going on, and the same guys are fighting the same people, and it's just, it's almost like the same thing over and over again. To be able to test yourself, to be able to compete against such great competition and not have to worry about your record, not have to worry about a loss costing you a chance to go to the UFC or Bellator or the PFL. That's awesome too, to be able to get that kind of a test and almost have it kind of, I don't want to say not count, but you know what I mean, against your pro career, to get that experience now on such a high level.
Yeah, people need that high level experience for anything is what's going to bring out the best. You want to, nobody cares, if the 94 Bulls were beating, the worst team in the league. They want to see them, they want to see the best of the best going up against each other. That's why we like the Olympics. It's the best of all of the countries, not just, a number one guy against a number, 200 guy. It's the best that each country has to offer. And the better the competition, the better the more competition that's going to be brought out of each person. So of course, the higher level, that's what you want. If you only have to beat a guy who is a 500 guy, you're only going to do enough. It's never going to bring the best out of you. So the higher the competition, the higher the level. Everybody excels and everybody really gets better.
Yeah, and you've been there, and we call you the Henry Whisperer. You've been there for the biggest fights in Henry Cejudo's career and been an integral part of that strategy and talking to him in between rounds. You've been a part of the Elite Amateur Fight League, winning championships, other organizations, the Contenders Series, big wins for your fighters there, LFA, Bellator, you name it. But that feeling to see those kids win last year, I looked at you specifically when you guys clinched it, and I saw your face. There's a lot of pride there. and you were legitimately just super happy for the young fighters who you were coaching, to see them go out there and get that win. It's one thing to get the experience of it all, Santino, but to get the win, what that does for a young fighter's confidence on that level. Can you just talk about that as they build their career to be able to call themselves a national champ?
Well, I mean, for them to get the win, winning is everything. We can all talk about, it's secondary. It doesn't matter if you win. It's,
It does.
all of that, all that BS. Winning is the only thing. That's the only reason why we do any of this. I hate losing. I only want to win. I don't care. I would rather win with a bad performance than lose with a phenomenal performance. And I've known a lot of those guys on the team for years. I've seen them come up and train them since they first started, since their very first amateur fights. And, I like to see them progress. Eventually, hopefully some of those guys go pro. And, that's really the payoff for me as a coach. I mean, I like to, of course I want everybody to win who I train, and a lot of the guys will come in mid-career and we'll work with them from there. But I really enjoy working with the guys from the beginning as amateurs, turning them pro, seeing them rise up in the ranks. I've got quite a few fighters who were amateurs with me and are now successful pros. And that's those are the cases that really get me going.
Yeah, fighters like Kamuela Kirk and Tracy Cortez. I mean, just working with them from the time they're young and seeing them all the way through. I mean, to me, such a rewarding experience to be a coach on any level in any sport is to see the development and to be there every step of the way with athletes as they progress and their persona grows. They step into themselves, their confidence grows, their aura, their mystique, and certainly who and what they are outside of the cage is a huge part of that. And I know that's something you really like to focus on. Santino, what an awesome time talking to you. I want to give you an opportunity now. And, I know you're excited to defend it. And I know there's a lot of teams gunning for it and coming after you. The American top team wasn't happy with their first round exit last year coming out of Florida. And, Virginia lost to Illinois. And you got Jackson Wink coming back in this year. And you're going to have a bunch of teams gunning for you.
Bring it. I wouldn't expect it any other way. I always tell the fighters, prepare for the best version of the person across the cage from you. I don't want them to have a injury. I don't want them to have a bad weight cut. I want the best version of the best person, so that way we can beat that person. We beat the best version. So come on.
Be your best and beat the best. All right, Santino, last thing, anything you want. The floor is yours. Anything you want to say about the league, about the experience, about the season coming up, to the audience watching, anything at all?
I just want to say thanks to EAFL for giving all these guys a chance to, start their careers. Everybody needs a starting point, and that's the hardest part, is the start. Once you've started, then the flow is a little bit easier. The success is a little bit easier. It's finding that first momentum point and adding on to that. And the EAFL, gives all of the guys that opportunity.
Yeah, and that's why I love it. Couldn't have said it better myself. Santino Defranco, head coach of the defending champion Arizona Apollos, overcoming adversity. We talked about weight cuts. We talked about injuries. We talked about saunas that didn't work. Your light died midway through the interview. Didn't throw you off at all, man. We found a way to get it done and finish
We're
it
here.
Up. Pros all the way, right?
Yep, exactly.
And I can say this, man, I've known you a long time. You're a credit to the sport. I consider you a friend. I always learn something, probably 4 or 5 things every time I talk to you. So make sure you check it out, guys. Santino's World is a great podcast. And if you want to learn some things, you ought to add that into your rotation, because Santino is a guy who teaches you a lot, knowledgeable in so many areas, and a great mixed martial arts coach, and a credit to any organization you're in. So there, we got the intro down. We got the outro down. We have nothing else to do.
We're good.
All right, Santino. Thank you, my man.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Jim.
All right, guys. EAFL, the Elite Amateur Fight League. You can be an owner, not just a fan. Check it out on our WeFunder, and continue to follow the world's #1 team versus team, state versus state MMA league, the Elite Amateur Fight League. The future fights here.